The sun was hot and harsh over the open plains of the Wild West, casting long shadows across the dry, cracked earth. Samuel Hayes walked steadily along the dusty trail, his boots kicking up little clouds of dirt with each step. He had always loved these quiet journeys. The way the wind whispered through the tall grasses and the distant mountains rose like silent guardians over the land. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful sometimes, and Samuel had learned to treasure these moments of calm. Life in the West was not easy. Every day demanded hard work, and dangers could appear without warning. But Samuel had always faced them with courage. He believed in helping others and standing up for what was right, even if it meant risking his own safety. That afternoon, Samuel was carrying supplies to a nearby settlement, a small collection of wooden cabins where a few families lived and worked together. He had made this journey many times before, but something about that day felt different. As he rounded a bend in the trail, he noticed a sudden movement among the mesquite bushes on the side of the path. At first he thought it might be an animal, perhaps a deer or a coyote, but then he saw her, a young Apache woman, struggling and frightened, as a group of men approached her with hostile intent. Her hair was dark and wild, her clothes torn from a struggle, and her eyes shone with both fear and determination. Samuel's heart pounded as he realized the danger she was in. He had heard stories of raiders attacking travelers, but he had never expected to witness such a moment so close to home. Samuel's first instinct was to help her. He reached for his rifle, but even as he aimed, he knew that shooting could draw more attention and possibly endanger both of them. The raiders had noticed him now, their eyes narrowing as they prepared to attack. Arrows flew through the air, sharp and fast. Samuel felt one graze his arm, the sting of it shocking him, but he did not falter. He raised his hands to deflect another arrow, ducked under a third, and kept moving forward. Each step was careful but determined. He knew that hesitation could cost her life. The young woman, noticing Samuel's bravery, seemed to find a spark of hope. She ran toward a small ridge for cover, and Samuel followed, his wounds beginning to ache with each movement. He could see the men behind them, relentless and cruel, but he refused to give up. He had always believed that true courage was not about being fearless. It was about acting even when fear was present. And in that moment, there was no question in his mind. He had to protect her. As they ran, Samuel called out to her, telling her to stay low and move quickly. She nodded, trusting him completely, and together they navigated the rough terrain. Rocks and shrubs scratched their skin, and the sun beat down mercilessly. But Samuel ignored the pain. Every arrow that missed him, every narrow escape only strengthened his resolve. He thought about what might happen if he failed, and the thought of leaving her in danger steeled his determination. Finally, after what felt like hours, Samuel managed to position himself between the raiders and the woman. With quick thinking and precise movements, he distracted them long enough for her to climb to a safer position on a small hill. The attackers were relentless, but Samuel's bravery and quick actions forced them to retreat. One by one they vanished into the plains, leaving Samuel and the woman alone at last. He sank to the ground, exhausted, his body aching from the arrows that had grazed him and the rough journey they had endured. The young woman approached him cautiously, her eyes filled with gratitude and relief. She introduced herself as Ahioka, and Samuel could see the strength and intelligence in her gaze. She had survived countless hardships already, but she had never known someone who would risk so much for her safety. As night fell, Samuel made a small camp nearby. He carefully tended to his injuries, cleaning the cuts and wrapping them with strips of cloth he carried for emergencies. Ahioka watched him silently, her respect for him growing with each careful movement. She had always been independent, taught to survive and defend herself, but she had never encountered someone who faced danger so selflessly. For Samuel, the pain in his arms and shoulders was nothing compared to the satisfaction of knowing he had done the right thing. He did not seek recognition or reward. The only thing that mattered was that the young woman was safe. They shared a simple meal by the fire, and as the flames flickered, Samuel and Ahioka began to talk. She told him about her life, her family, and the hardships her people faced. Samuel listened carefully, learning about the Apache traditions, their stories, and the resilience required to live in such a harsh environment. He realized that this encounter was more than just a moment of bravery. It was a chance to understand another way of life, to see the world through the eyes of someone who had faced danger and injustice with strength and dignity. Throughout the night, Samuel reflected on the events of the day. The arrows that had struck him were reminders of the risks he had taken, yet he felt no regret. Each wound was a testament to his commitment to help someone in need, to act with courage and compassion when it mattered most. He thought about the many settlers and travelers who had turned away in fear, and he felt proud that he had chosen a different path. Courage, he realized, was not measured by the absence of danger, but by the willingness to face it for the sake of others. Ahioka, too, could not stop thinking about Samuel's actions. She had seen men in her life who were strong but selfish, who only acted to protect themselves. Samuel was different. He had risked his life without hesitation, driven by a sense of justice and empathy that was rare in the world they lived in. She felt a growing sense of trust and respect for him, realizing that he was not just a stranger who had saved her life, but someone who truly cared about the well-being of others. As dawn approached, Samuel and Ahioka prepared to continue their journey. There were more dangers ahead, more unknown challenges waiting on the open plains, but they faced them together. Samuel's injuries were painful, but they did not slow him down. He moved with purpose, guiding Ahioka through the rugged terrain, teaching her to watch for signs of danger, and learning from her knowledge of the land. In those early hours of the morning, a bond began to form between them, a bond built on trust, courage, and shared experience. Every step Samuel took reminded him of the choices he had made. The arrows that had flown toward him were not just physical threats. They symbolized the many obstacles and risks one could face in life. Yet he had met them head-on, and in doing so he had discovered a deeper sense of purpose. Protecting Ahioka was not about heroism. It was about understanding the value of life, the importance of standing for what is right, and the quiet satisfaction that comes from acting with integrity. By the time the sun rose high over the plains, Samuel and Ahioka had found a small shaded area near a creek. They rested there, letting the cool water soothe their tired bodies. The young woman smiled at Samuel, a mixture of relief, gratitude, and admiration in her expression. Samuel returned the smile, knowing that he had made a difference. The journey ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in a long time he felt a sense of peace. He had faced danger, helped someone in need, and had no regrets. And so, under the bright morning sun, Samuel Hayes and Ahioka began a journey that would change both of their lives forever. The plains stretched endlessly before them, full of unknown challenges, but together they were stronger. Samuel had taken the arrows to save her, and not for a single moment did he regret it. Courage, compassion, and the quiet strength of doing what is right had defined that day, and it would continue to define the days to come. After that first day, Samuel Hayes and Ahioka continued their journey across the vast plains of the Wild West. The morning sun shone brightly, reflecting off the golden grasses, and the wind carried the distant sounds of rivers and wildlife. Samuel's body still ached from the arrows and rough chase, but he felt stronger than ever in spirit. Each step reminded him of the choice he had made, to protect Ahioka without hesitation. For him, the satisfaction of doing what was right outweighed every scrape, bruise, and wound he had received. Ahioka walked beside him, moving with quiet grace and confidence. Although she had just experienced terror and near death, there was a calm determination in her eyes. She had grown up learning to survive in a harsh world, and she recognized the courage in Samuel not just through his actions, but through the care he showed for her and the land around them. As they walked, she began to share stories of her people, the Apache, teaching Samuel about their traditions, their respect for nature, and the lessons passed down through generations. Samuel listened intently, fascinated by her knowledge and the wisdom that shone through her words. Despite the beauty of the plains, danger still lingered everywhere. Wolves roamed the forests, rivers could sweep travelers away, and hostile encounters were always a possibility. Samuel taught Ahioka how to spot signs of danger in the environment, the tracks of animals, the rustling of the bushes, and the distant cries that could signal trouble. Ahioka, in return, showed Samuel how to move quietly, how to find safe drinking water, and how to stay alert even in moments of calm. Together they became a team, learning from each other and trusting each other completely. As they traveled, their bond deepened. Samuel admired Ahioka's resilience, her courage, and the way she faced adversity with calm determination. He had saved her life, yes, but it was clear that she had strength that could match his own. He respected her independence and intelligence, and he began to see her not just as someone in need of protection, but as a companion and equal, Ahyoka, for her part, admired Samuel's bravery, his kindness, and his unwavering sense of justice. She had seen men in her life who acted only for themselves, who avoided danger or turned away from those in need. Samuel was different. He had risked everything for her without hesitation, and she felt a deep sense of trust and gratitude. One afternoon, they reached a small grove by a creek, where they decided to rest and gather their strength. The water was cool and refreshing, and Samuel showed Ahyoka how to set up a simple campfire to cook their small meal. As they ate, they talked about their pasts and their dreams for the future. Samuel shared stories of his childhood on a small homestead, of the lessons his parents had taught him about honesty, courage, and helping others. Ahyoka shared memories of her family and her people, of the struggles they faced, but also the joy and pride in their traditions. Each story brought them closer together, creating a connection that went beyond words. Days passed and the journey continued. Samuel and Ahyoka faced challenges together: steep hills that left their legs aching, sudden storms that drenched them to the bone, and moments when food and water were scarce. But they never gave up. Samuel's bravery and Ahyoka's knowledge complemented each other perfectly. When danger came, they faced it together. When the plains seemed endless, they encouraged each other to keep moving forward. With each passing day, their trust grew, and so did their respect for one another. At night, by the light of the campfire, Samuel often thought about the arrows that had struck him on that first day. They were painful reminders of the risk he had taken, but they were also symbols of the courage that defined him. He realized that true bravery was not about seeking glory. It was about acting when it mattered most, even if no one would ever know. Ahyoka, watching him tend to the fire or gather water, saw that same courage reflected in his eyes every day. She understood that he had not just saved her life once. He had shown her that kindness, bravery, and integrity could exist even in a harsh and dangerous world. As they traveled through the plains, Samuel and Ahyoka encountered other settlers and travelers. Some were wary, suspicious of strangers, while others had heard stories of Samuel's courage and welcomed him warmly. Samuel never sought recognition for what he had done. He did not boast of the arrows or the danger he faced. For him, the greatest reward was knowing that Ahyoka was safe and that he had acted with honesty and bravery. Ahyoka, too, gained respect from those they met, as people saw her strength and the way she carried herself with dignity. Together, they became a symbol of courage, compassion, and cooperation between different peoples in a time and place where misunderstanding was common. Over time, the journey shaped them both in ways they had not expected. Samuel became more aware of the world beyond his own experiences, learning to see life through Ahyoka's eyes and understanding the challenges her people faced. He learned patience, humility, and the importance of listening and observing before acting. Ahyoka in turn saw the value of trust and teamwork. She learned that it was not weakness to accept help, but a sign of wisdom to recognize when working together could make both stronger. They shared their skills, their stories, and their laughter, creating memories that would last a lifetime. Eventually, their journey led them to a small settlement where Samuel and Ahyoka decided to rest for a while. The townspeople were curious about the pair, about how Samuel had saved her and the bond that had formed between them. Samuel spoke little of the details of the attack, focusing instead on the lessons he had learned and the importance of courage, kindness, and trust. Ahyoka shared her own experiences and traditions, helping to bridge the gap between cultures and teaching the settlers to respect and understand one another. Together, they showed that bravery was not just about facing danger, but about building relationships and acting with integrity. Even as time passed and the memory of the arrows faded from Samuel's body, they remained vivid in his mind. They were reminders of the moment when he had chosen to act, to risk his life for another person and to stand for what was right. Not for a single moment did he regret it. The experience had shaped him, strengthened him, and led him to a friendship and perhaps more with Ahyoka that would endure for years to come. Ahyoka often reflected on that first day as well. She had faced danger countless times in her life, but she had never known someone who would act with such selflessness and courage. Samuel had not only saved her life, he had shown her that people could act with honor, respect, and compassion, even in a world filled with hardship. Their shared journey became a story they would tell each other and remember forever, a tale of bravery, trust, and the unexpected ways that kindness can change lives. As the sun set over the plains, casting long golden shadows across the earth, Samuel and Ahyoka sat together by the campfire. They watched the sky turn shades of pink and orange, and in the quiet of the evening they felt a deep sense of peace. They had faced danger, uncertainty, and the challenges of the Wild West, yet they had emerged stronger, closer, and wiser. The story of Samuel taking the arrows to save Ahyoka was not just about bravery in a single moment. It was about the courage to act, the value of trust, and the enduring power of friendship and respect. And so, their lives continued, intertwined by a shared journey that neither danger nor time could erase. The plains stretched endlessly before them, full of possibilities, challenges, and adventures. But together, they faced each day with courage, wisdom, and a bond forged in the fires of experience. The story of Samuel and Ahyoka became a quiet legend among the settlers and travelers of the West, a story of love, respect, courage, and the unforgettable moment when a man had taken arrows to save a woman, and not for a single moment did he regret it.